She slept with a stranger to avoid marriage, but he turned out to be the groom. Subscribe to the channel and, before we begin the story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. Enjoy the story. Maya Torres had spent most of her adult life balancing obligations that felt heavier than the ocean waves she guided tourists across. She wore the uniform smile of a tour guide in Santa Cruz, but behind that practiced expression lived a pressure she could no longer ignore. Her mother, Rose, carried herself with the air of someone who refused to accept failure, and every conversation between them returned to the same refrain: marry Victor Langston, secure the Torres family business, and sacrifice personal freedom in exchange for financial survival. Rose's voice echoed in Maya's mind, even when her mother wasn't in the room. Victor is your chance. He's stability. He's respectability. Do you really want to watch everything your father built sink beneath debts? Rose's eyes always narrowed with that pointed sharpness, as if daring Maya to argue. And Maya always argued. "I'm not a trophy wife, Mom," she said one evening in their small, cluttered living room, maps of the bay still pinned to the wall, invoices scattered across the coffee table. "I can work. I can find solutions. But marrying a man I can't stand isn't one of them." Rose straightened, arms crossed tightly. "You think pride pays bills? Victor is offering more than you realize. It's not just about you anymore. Your brother Gabe. What future does he have if this company collapses?" At the mention of Gabe, Maya felt her chest constrict. Gabe, only 17, was the soft edge in her life. He dreamed of university, of leaving Santa Cruz for something bigger, but tuition bills already felt like an impossible mountain. Later that night, she found him at the kitchen table sketching mechanical diagrams in his notebook, earbuds in, oblivious to her mother's ultimatum. "Gabe," Maya said quietly, pulling out a chair beside him, "do you ever think Mom's right? That maybe I should just make things easier for us?" He pushed the earbuds aside, frowning. "No, you'd be miserable. And if you're miserable, what's the point of me even going to college? We're supposed to make it out together." His voice cracked slightly, not from weakness, but from conviction he hadn't quite learned to mask. The weight of his trust dug into her ribs. She couldn't betray it. Her one safe haven outside home was the Pacific Grind, a coffee shop tucked between surf shops and tattoo parlors. Lucy Harper, her best friend since high school, worked behind the counter with a perpetual smirk and sharp tongue. Maya spent hours there, spilling thoughts over chipped mugs of espresso. Lucy leaned across the counter one afternoon, lowering her voice, though no one else paid them any attention. "So let me get this straight. Your mum thinks handing you off to Victor, Santa Cruz's poster child for entitlement, is the solution. Honestly, Maya, I'd rather you auction your soul on Craigslist." Maya laughed, but the sound broke halfway. "She's relentless. Every argument ends the same way. Victor is our salvation. I can't breathe." Lucy's eyes softened. "Then don't let her decide for you. You've got fire, Maya. Use it. Make him lose interest before she forces you into something you'll regret." The suggestion stirred something restless inside her, something reckless. That evening, while leading a group of tourists along the shoreline, she felt the decision harden in her chest like stone. She would destroy Victor's carefully cultivated interest. Not by yelling, not by pleading, but by turning herself into someone he'd never want near his polished, aristocratic world. If Victor prided himself on appearances, then she'd craft a scandal big enough to send him running. The opportunity presented itself in the shape of Ethan. He appeared at the far end of the beach, surfboard under his arm, blonde hair damp, sand clinging to his ankles. He wasn't flashy, just another surfer among dozens, but there was something unstudied about him, something unbothered by expectations. While tourists snapped photos of sea lions, Maya's gaze drifted toward him, a spark of possibility igniting in her mind. As her group dispersed back toward the shuttle, she lingered, pretending to check equipment. When Ethan passed, she called out, her voice steadier than she felt. "Hey, you surf here often?" He looked up, squinting slightly, before flashing a grin that reached his eyes. "Every day I can. Best therapy in the world." Maya stepped closer, lowering her tone. "I need to ask you something strange, maybe even crazy." Ethan raised an eyebrow, amusement flickering across his face. "You've got my attention. What's the crazy part?" She hesitated only a second. "I need people to believe we spent the night together. Nothing happened, obviously, but if the right person hears it, it'll solve a problem for me." For a moment he said nothing, studying her with a seriousness that surprised her. Then he laughed softly, not mocking but curious. "You don't even know me, and you're asking me to stage a scandal with you? That's bold." "I don't have much choice," Maya admitted, her voice dropping. "It's complicated. My family's drowning in debt, and there's this man, Victor Langston. My mother wants me tied to him, but if he thinks I'm tarnished, maybe he'll walk away." Ethan leaned on his board, thoughtful. "You want me to be your escape hatch?" "Exactly," she whispered. Instead of dismissing her, he tilted his head, considering. "All right, let's say I go along with this. What do I get out of pretending I'm your scandal?" Her heart raced. She hadn't thought that far. A good story, maybe a few free boat tours. Honestly, I can't offer much. His grin returned, playful yet edged with intrigue. Maybe I don't need much. Maybe I just like the idea of shaking up someone else's perfect little plan. Maya exhaled for the first time that day. "So you'll do it?" Ethan extended his hand, palm rough from the salt and board wax. "Why not? Sounds like fun." As her fingers closed around his, the decision became real. She had lit the match. The only question now was how much would burn. And so, on that quiet stretch of sand, with Ethan's hand in hers and the weight of her family's future pressing against her ribs, Maya Torres set in motion a choice that would unravel everything she thought she knew. The next morning would not begin with routine tours or quiet coffee with Lucy. It would begin with whispers, with glances, with the ripple of a scandal carefully staged but impossible to control. And in that ripple, rumors in Santa Cruz had a way of spreading faster than waves breaking on the rocks. By the following morning, the story of Maya Torres and the mysterious surfer had grown into something louder, wilder, impossible to ignore. At the wharf, fishermen who had known her since childhood leaned against crates of nets, trading knowing smirks. Tourists, wide-eyed and thrilled to be brushing shoulders with a scandal, whispered as if her name were part of the attraction package. Even the barefoot drifters strumming guitars at the pier wove half-invented details into their songs. "Maya Torres," one fisherman muttered, shaking his head with mock gravity. "The girl who gave up a millionaire for a wild night with some beach bum." Laughter followed, the kind that carried more judgment than humor. By noon, Lucy at the Pacific Grind had already heard 3 versions of the tale, each more outrageous than the last. When Maya stepped inside, her friend leaned across the counter and whispered, "You realize you're officially a legend. Someone swears they saw you sneaking out of a van at sunrise." Maya forced a smirk, though her chest tightened. "Perfect. Exactly what I wanted." Lucy arched a brow. "Careful what you wish for, babe. This genie doesn't go back in the bottle." She barely had time to sip her coffee before the storm reached its peak. Victor Langston arrived at the Torres office the next afternoon without announcement, his black luxury car parked across 2 spaces as though the asphalt owed him courtesy. He barged through the door, his tailored suit crisp, his expression sharp with indignation. Rose was already inside, reviewing stacks of overdue bills, when his voice filled the room. "Maya," Victor snapped, slamming the door behind him. "Tell me this nonsense isn't true. Tell me you didn't humiliate me in front of the entire city." Maya leaned against the desk, arms folded, her heart hammering but her voice steady. "Which nonsense, Victor? There's so much circulating, you'll have to be specific." His jaw tightened. "Don't play coy. The surfer, the supposed knight, the whispers at the yacht club. You've dragged my name through the mud for some fling." Rose rose from her chair, eyes wide. "Maya, please. Say it isn't true. Tell him it's just gossip." But Maya didn't flinch. She looked Victor straight in the eye. "It's true, every word." Victor's face flushed crimson. "You ungrateful, reckless. Do you have any idea what you've done? I was willing to overlook your lack of refinement, your stubborn streak, because I thought you understood the value of what I was offering. But now you've made a mockery of me." "Good," Maya replied coolly. "Now you don't have to waste your time pretending you ever respected me." Victor's fury snapped like a whip. "We're done. Consider your family cut off from any help. Don't bother calling me again." He stormed out, the echo of the slammed door vibrating through the cramped office. Rose stood frozen, her hands trembling. Slowly, she turned toward her daughter, disbelief twisting her features. "Do you realize what you've done?" she whispered, voice breaking. "You destroyed the only chance we had. Victor was willing to save us, and you—" Her voice cracked into a sob of rage. "You've thrown us into ruin." Maya swallowed hard, but refused to retreat. "I destroyed a prison sentence, not our family. You wanted me to sell myself for his money, and I won't." Rose's hand pressed against her chest as if steadying her heart. "You're so blind, Maya. You think this is about pride, but it's about survival. Gabe's future, the business, our home, everything." The air in the room was so tight with anger and grief that Maya's breath felt trapped, and then, without warning, the tension cracked open. The office door creaked again, but this time the figure who entered was not Victor, the surfer. Only he was no longer the scruffy stranger she'd met on the beach. His blonde hair was combed neatly, his stubble trimmed, his t-shirt and board shorts replaced by a fitted navy button-up and slacks. He carried himself with a quiet confidence that filled the small room before he even spoke. Rose gasped audibly. "Who?" Ethan extended a hand, his voice measured, professional. "Ethan Caldwell, CEO of Caldwell Tech, San Jose. I believe we've all got some things to discuss." Maya's eyes widened, her pulse spiked, disbelieving. Ethan? The same Ethan who had smirked at her wild idea and agreed to stage a scandal for fun. He wasn't some carefree drifter, he was power disguised as play. Rose's mouth parted, stunned as recognition dawned. Caldwell, as in the Caldwell Tech that partnered with Langston Industries. Ethan's smile didn't reach his eyes. Formally partnered. Let's just say Victor and I didn't see eye to eye. I imagine he's not too thrilled about me being here. Rose blinked rapidly, almost forgetting her anger at Maya. Opportunity glittered in her gaze. "Mr. Caldwell, Of course, please. Sit. You're most welcome." Maya, however, remained frozen. The room tilted around her. The entire scandal had been staged on the assumption that Ethan was a nobody, a pawn she could maneuver freely, but now he wasn't a pawn at all. He was a player, maybe even someone capable of flipping the entire board. Ethan caught her stare, the faintest flicker of amusement crossing his face, as though he knew exactly how deeply the ground had shifted beneath her feet. And in that moment, Maya understood. The lie she had built to free herself from Victor had become a truth that would bind her in ways she hadn't yet begun to grasp. The board had changed, the pieces rearranged, and as Rose leaned forward with new calculations in her eyes, Maya felt the first ripple of a game she hadn't agreed to play. The real consequences were only beginning. And with Ethan Caldwell's arrival, Ethan Caldwell's decision to stay at the Torres house unsettled everything. He explained it with casual logic. If I'm going to understand your operation, I need to see it up close. But his presence was more than observation. He filled rooms with quiet authority, studying details others ignored, moving things around as if the house and the family business were puzzles he couldn't resist solving. From the first evening, Maya bristled. At dinner, when Rose proudly served her arroz con pollo, Ethan praised it warmly, then asked, "Do you ever track the cost per serving? Scaling meals for tourist groups might save you hundreds monthly." Maya set her fork down. "This isn't your boardroom. It's our home." Ethan smiled easily, but his eyes lingered on hers with deliberate challenge. "I know, but sometimes the way you run a kitchen says a lot about how you run everything else." Rose chuckled nervously, delighted by his engagement. Gabe, curious, bombarded Ethan with questions about technology, algorithms, and college internships. Ethan answered with patience, drawing diagrams on napkins, making Gabe laugh. And through it all, Maya simmered, caught between admiration and annoyance. The next morning, she found him reorganizing the storage shed. "What the hell are you doing?" she demanded, hands on her hips. Ethan lifted a clipboard, smudges of grease on his shirt. "Inventory. You had equipment buried under rust. Half of it could be repaired. The other half is junk. Efficiency starts with knowing what you own." "You don't get to walk in here and rearrange my life," she snapped. He leaned against a crate, smirking. "I'm not rearranging your life. I'm rearranging your chaos. There's a difference." She should have hated him for it, but instead her pulse betrayed her, quickening under his gaze. And later, when they argued again, he disarmed her by listening, not with the polite detachment most men offered, but with focus so sharp she felt seen in ways that scared her. At night, she overheard him in the kitchen, laughing with Gabe, his deep voice softened by patience. When she entered, he glanced at her, an amused spark in his eyes, as if he knew she'd been listening all along. She turned away, muttering, "Don't get too comfortable. You're not staying forever." His reply followed her up the stairs. "Funny, you say that like you're trying to convince yourself." Their chemistry grew in the cracks between fights and laughter, in arguments that left them flushed and silences that carried weight. Maya hated it, hated how her body leaned toward him, even when her mind screamed to stay away. Rose, however, was done waiting. One afternoon, she swept into the living room with her voice trembling between excitement and command. "We're hosting a dinner at the Coral Reef tomorrow night." Maya frowned. "For what?" Rose clasped her hands together, smiling at Ethan. "For your engagement announcement." The words fell like stone. Maya shot to her feet. "Engagement? Are you out of your mind? We're not engaged." Rose's eyes hardened. "You think you can keep playing games? The whole town is already talking. This dinner seals respectability. Ethan is willing, and you will do this." Maya turned toward Ethan, furious. "Are you? Did you agree to this circus?" Ethan's lips curved slightly, betraying amusement rather than outrage. "I didn't say yes, I didn't say no. I thought I'd let you speak first." That grin, it infuriated her more than Rose's ultimatum. She stormed out, pulse pounding, breath caught in her throat. Later that night, she sat across from Lucy at the Pacific Grind, her suitcase already half-packed in her mind. "I bought the ticket," Maya whispered, voice shaking. "One way to Hawaii. I'm leaving tomorrow morning, before the dinner, before the announcement, before I get trapped in someone else's plan again." Lucy's eyes widened. "You're serious?" Maya nodded, clutching the edge of her cup. "I can't breathe here, Luce. Between Mom's schemes, Victor's threats, and Ethan, God, Ethan, I'm losing myself. I have to run." Lucy reached across the table, grabbing her hand. "Listen to me. You've spent years running from cages other people built. But what if this isn't a cage? What if this is the first thing that's actually real? Maya pulled her hand back, heart aching. Real doesn't matter. Real doesn't pay bills. Real doesn't free me from being cornered. Lucy studied her, sadness flickering in her expression. Or maybe real is the only thing that's ever going to save you. Maya shook her head. I can't risk it. Not with him. Not with any of this. She stood, determination hardening in her chest. Tomorrow morning, while Rose prepared for her polished dinner and Ethan played along with his unreadable half-smile, Maya would be on a plane to anywhere but here. She didn't know if she was running toward freedom or abandoning something she couldn't name. She only knew she was running. And as she zipped her suitcase that night, the sound echoing louder than her own thoughts, the terminal at Monterey Airport buzzed with hurried footsteps and muffled announcements. Maya Torres clutched her boarding pass so tightly, the edges bent against her palm. She had convinced herself this was the only way. Leave Santa Cruz behind, escape her mother's control, Victor's shadow, and Ethan Caldwell's unsettling presence. The gate ahead promised freedom, even if it meant exile. She was about to step forward when a voice cut through the noise. Maya! Her breath stalled. She turned, and there he was, Ethan, chest heaving, hair mussed as if he had run the whole way. In one hand, he carried a surfboard, scarred and beaten from years of use. Across its surface, bold letters carved deep into the fiberglass spelled one word. Maya. She blinked, stunned. What are you doing here? He walked closer, every stride fierce with purpose, ignoring the stares of travelers and security guards. I couldn't let you leave without telling you the truth. His voice cracked, raw. Not Rose's plan, not some arrangement. Just me. I love you, not because you're convenient, not because you're leverage, but because you are chaos and defiance, and you make me want to be more than a man with a company and a reputation. You dared to turn my life upside down, and I don't want it right side up again if it means losing you. Maya laughed through tears, pressing her hand to her mouth. You brought a surfboard into an airport? He glanced at the board, then back at her. I didn't know what else to bring. This board is the only thing I've trusted to carry me when the water tried to kill me. I carved your name into it because you've become that for me. You're the only thing I trust to carry me forward. Her knees weakened. Passengers shuffled around them. But for Maya, the terminal shrank until only Ethan existed. The man she had once used as a pawn had turned into her partner, offering not chains but choice. She shook her head, laughter trembling against tears. I was so ready to run away. From Mom, from Victor, from you. But the truth is, I don't want to run anymore. Not from you, not from myself. The announcement for boarding echoed above them, but Maya crumpled her ticket in her fist. She walked to Ethan, placing her forehead against his chest, the surfboard awkwardly pressed between them. Let's go home. He exhaled in relief, wrapping an arm around her. Home sounds good. Uki. The wedding came weeks later, not in gilded halls or under chandeliers, but on the very beach where scandal had first sparked. Tourists stumbled onto the scene, some staying as curious witnesses, while locals brought folding chairs and coolers. Pranchas stood upright in the sand, painted with messages, replacing floral arches. Beer bottles clinked, laughter echoed, and the tide kept rhythm with the vows. Lucy adjusted Maya's hair, whispering, See, no cage, just wings. Rose sat stiff at first, arms crossed, but as she watched her daughter stand barefoot in front of Ethan, joy flickering across her face, her eyes softened. She whispered to herself, almost unwilling, she chose this, and she's happy. Even Victor appeared, his polished shoes sinking into the sand. For a moment silence spread as he approached. Maya tensed, but Victor only lifted his glass in a restrained toast. To chaos, I suppose. he muttered, with the faintest smile before retreating, leaving old grudges buried in the surf. When Maya and Ethan kissed, the crowd erupted. The celebration wasn't flawless. Sand spilled into drinks, a speaker blew out mid-song, but none of it mattered. It was real, imperfect, alive. Years passed. The Torres Tour Company, reborn under Maya and Ethan's partnership, expanded into a thriving venture. Their blend of adventure and technology made it unlike any other. Tourists returned not just for the ocean, but for the story, Maya and Ethan's story. Gabe, once the boy sketching diagrams at the kitchen table, walked across a university stage with a degree in engineering, his sister cheering the loudest, and Rose, who had once seen her daughter only as a bargaining chip, finally learned to let go. Sitting on the porch of the refurbished family office, she admitted one evening, "I was wrong. You weren't our salvation through marriage. You were our salvation because you refused to be sold." Maya smiled, leaning against Ethan, who rested his arm across her shoulders. "I didn't save anyone, Mom. I just found something worth staying for." Ethan pressed a kiss to her temple. "Correction. You found someone willing to surf through every storm with you." Maya laughed, remembering the surfboard, with her name carved deep into its battered frame, now hanging in their office like a relic. She had once thought freedom meant escape. But true freedom, she discovered, was the choice to stay, on her terms, in her love, in her life, and that choice carried her farther than any plane ticket ever could. The end.